Hi, yes, all. Welcome to our final lesson this week. And what we're doing is we're taking our knowledge of subtracting numbers from the previous lesson, and we're introducing the fact of when we need to exchange and how those would work in our standard written method and what happens when we do that. So first we start here. We've got our number, which is on our place value grid just here. We've got 4,523, and we're going to take away 1,217. The problem we have here is we start in the ones column, and I don't have 7 ones that I can cross out. So how do I go about doing this? So what we have to do is we have to exchange from our tens. So we take one of our tens, we're going to move it down into the ones column. Now we know that 1 10 is the same as 10 ones. So as I exchange it across, I still keep the value. The value is still the same, but I've just moved that 10 into the ones column, made it 10 ones. At which point I then have 7 ones I can cross out, and I can find out my answer, continuing my crossing out as I have done. I'm left with 3,306. So what I'm going to do is going to model you how that would work in our formal written method. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the sum of 6,381 minus 3,650. Now, before I do it, obviously you could have a go if you like. Pause now if you want to do that. If you want to watch the model and then try the sums I'm going to give you afterwards, that is fine also. So how do we show exchange in our column method in order to make our life slightly easier? And remember, what we want to do is try and only have to deal with one column at a time, and that just makes our life slightly easier when we come to do it. So if we can do the sum, we just do the sum. So we can start how we normally do, which is right at the very last column, and we do 1 minus whatever is there, and we've got 1 minus nothing, which is still 1. We can do it, so we just do it in the order that we would normally would. Then we've got 8 minus 5, which again, we can do. So we complete the sum. So 8 minus 5 is 3. And then we've got 3 minus 6. Now at this point is when we go, we don't have enough on the top here to take 6 away. So we have to exchange from the number that's larger than it down to that column in order to get enough. And the way we do that is we know that this one of these is 10 of the previous column. And it doesn't matter what column we're in, it's always that case. 110 is 10 ones, 100 is 10 tens, 1,000 is 10 hundreds. So we can exchange, not changing the number at all. So I'm going to change that down to 5, and we must do, I would always do that first, just so that we remember to do it. Otherwise, we can miss that, and that will make a mistake in our calculations. So we've exchanged one here. We keep that 1,000 down to here. I would do it little, and that just means that it's nice and easy for us to see where the exchange has happened. It's not changing the base number. We can still see the base number there, but we can see where our exchange has taken place here. So that 1,000 actually comes down here. That's still, if we were to read this, 1,300 and whatever it happens to be. So we know that that 5 and that 1 would go together to make a 6, and we can see where that is. Now we have enough. We've got 13, and we can take away 6, which gives us 7. And it means that we can do it. Then we've got 5 minus 3, which is 2. Okay, so using the model we've just seen, can you try and attempt the 3 questions that are on the screen at the moment? The last one, you might have to think a little bit more about, and remember if you've ever been told about the dominoes and how that might work and how it might help you. Have a go now. So answers for the questions that you've done, getting slightly trickier as we go along. A nice little one down here that we'll talk about how we do in a minute. So again, we start as we normally do. We do the calculations as we can, seeing if we can do them or whether we need to exchange. So 5 minus 3 we can do. 5 minus 7, we can't, so we have to exchange. We exchange from the 6, making that into a 5, and bringing a 1 down here to make that into a 15 in that column. 15 minus 7 is 8. Remember I said before, this is 500. This actually counts as a 100 to make this 150 minus 70, which is our 80. And that's why the number hasn't changed. We've still got in total that 500 and that 100, which makes it 600 there. So we haven't actually changed the number at all. Now we do 5 minus 1, or 500 minus 100, which is 400 or 4. Then we do 8,000 minus 2,000, or 8 minus 2, which is 6. So the answer is 6,482. Moving on to our next question over here, we've got 6,339 minus 1,593. Again, we start in the smallest column. If we were doing decimals that we have talked about before, still the smallest column possible. So we do 9 minus 3, which is 6. Then we look in the next column. We go, I've got 3, I've got to minus 9. I can't do it. So I borrow from the next column. And I borrow from the next column even if I know I wouldn't be able to complete the sum in that column yet. There is one exception, and we'll come to that in a minute. So I borrow, that makes that into a 2, and that one into a 13, or it makes it into 200 and 130, keeping that value of the 300 there. Then I've got this 13 minus 9. More than likely in my head, I'd do minus 10 and add 1, which makes it into 4. Then I go to the next column. We've got 2, because remember we exchanged out of it, minus a 5. Again, I haven't got enough there to do that. So I exchange from the column above it. That's 6,000 becomes 5,000. And this column then becomes 1,200, or 12. Then I say 12 minus 5, and that is 7, or 700. Then I've got my 5,000 and my 1,000. Taking them away gives me 4,000. 5 minus 1 equals 4. And we come down to this last one. And this last one's interesting because we've got all the zeros along the top line, and people always talk about zeros along the top line making it slightly harder because I can't borrow from nothing. I can't exchange from nothing just there. So I look in the first one, I've got 0 minus 2. There isn't anything there to exchange from. So I would look into the next column and see whether I exchange here. But there's still nothing here, so I can't exchange there. So I'd have to exchange to have enough there to go down there. Still nothing. So we come up here and we're exchanging out of this column. That becomes a 5. And the next column down, remember, we can only affect one column down, becomes 10. Okay? And that's massively important because then we can exchange down again. This is why I call it the domino effect. It's a bit like I push 1 over here and it keeps tumbling down to where I need it to be. I can then exchange. I've got 10 here. I can now exchange to make this number bigger. I can exchange that 10 for a 9. And remember, it's 10 in total, so 1 less than 10 is 9, and that becomes 10. I still need this exchange going on here, so I can do it again. And there's my new number I have here that should mean that I can do my subtraction. So I can do 10 minus 2, which is 8. I can do 9 minus 5, which is 4. I can do 9 minus 2, which is 7. And I can do 5 minus 4, which is 1. Okay, so using the model we talked about today, here are some questions for you to try. There are some standard subtraction questions to begin with, and then I've given you a little bit more of some problem-solving questions to end with. That's just to see whether or not, if you want to challenge yourself and see how you can do, thinking about what's there. I've included a bar model just to see if you can remember how to do that as well. Put your answers onto Tapestry, and I'll see you in the next lesson.